This content is being brought to you by the Bourbon Real Talk American Whiskey Aroma Kit. This is a tool that I put together to help all you whiskey aficionados out there develop your palates. You can sit down with the vials and train your senses, or you can sit down with a great dram and break that whiskey down to its components. If you have any interest of purchasing a kit of your own, head on over to bourbonrealtalk.com/shop and pick one up. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody out there in Bourbon Real Talk land. This is Randy Sullivan, and I have a very special guest with me today. If you don't know him, if you haven't heard of him, his name is Dwayne Pour. And when you hear about his whiskey collection, you're going to know how ironic his last name is. So Dwayne was introduced to me by the good people up at Oklahoma Bourbon Connoisseurs, and you have a ridiculous, impressive whiskey collection. So how did you get started in collecting whiskey?
Well, it started with wine.
Okay.
So
same with me.
About 1997, I was a wine collector, wine drinker. Cabernet Sauvignon, that's what I liked. And I got this inner ear thing going and couldn't have the tannins anymore in red wines.
Okay.
So I was looking for something that was every bit as complex taste-wise as I could find in a red wine. And I found that in single malt Scotch whiskey.
Okay.
A friend of mine we were on a business trip and introduced me to Cardew 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, one of the younger whiskeys. And I found that, like with red wines, I could pick the flavors out. I could taste the different nuances, and it wasn't too hot to drink. And a little bit of tannin in a Scotch, a little bit of tannin in a bourbon from the oak cask, but you're only drinking 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces versus with wine, you're drinking 8 ounces or a whole bottle.
Right, sure.
So the offset was perfect. And once I started looking for the things I liked. And as I found them, I would typically buy more than one.
Wow. Did you collect like baseball cards as a kid or anything like that?
Baseball cards, comic books, and just like I did with the wine, at one point I had about 1,000 bottles of Cabernet Sauvignon that my friends were all lucky enough to be blessed with when I couldn't drink it anymore. So I just started handing it out.
So it's ironic because I find that when I come across somebody that really just dives in and starts collecting, they just have a collector's mentality, right? And you're not the first like super collector that I've come across that's like, yeah, it used to be comic books and baseball cards when I was a kid, and now it's just alcohol.
Right, absolutely.
So we usually drink while we talk, and you've got a special bottle for us. Why don't you tell us what this is?
I do. This is the Buffalo Trace Experimental Collection. This particular bottle was 8 years in a new oak barrel, and then 8 years in a French oak Cabernet Franc barrel.
Okay.
It's 16 years old, 45% alcohol. And it's just part of that experiment they did to see what they could do with the wood. I thought we might give that a try.
Well, I'll be very excited to try it with you.
So it says on the bottle that 43% of this alcohol evaporated.
Okay. And that's a good bit of angel share there.
And that is a beautiful color.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have done some education about the Texas whiskey market. We get ridiculous extraction of color in Texas because of our heat. And I've made comments that Kentucky is never going to rival us for extraction, but there's things obviously that we're missing in Texas that they have there. But sometimes when you see these finished ones, it's almost as dark.
Yeah. You can really smell the wine.
The wine, the Cab Franc is coming through strong. Getting a lot of dry dark fruit. Maybe raisin plum, maybe a little bit of blueberry.
There's a lot of raisins, and it really comes through that sweetness of the raisins on the back of your tongue.
And then on the palate, damn, that tastes like a port. Tastes like a port. That's amazing.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Look at the legs on that thing. Right down the glass, really, really thick.
Yeah, very oily. And so
it's got a great mouthfeel, little tannic and dry on the back, but the sweetness of those, probably the raisin taste, sweetness kind of flows through the back.
Yeah, I honestly, if you gave this to me in a blind, I probably wouldn't have been able to guess what it was.
No way. Doesn't taste like Buffalo Trace at all.
I would have thought more brandy than Kentucky whiskey. But wow, pretty interesting.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like it. It'll be a good little sipper. And so you started, I think you told me 21 years ago collecting scotch.
1998. This will be my 22nd year. What I found was when I started collecting, it was for my drinking. I enjoyed it, and I liked the lighter, fruitier, richer, rounder. So like a Macallan 12, something with that sherry cask finish. I like the light and fruity things like Glenmorangie. So I found the things I started buying were going up in value. I go back to buy it a year later, and I paid $50 for it, and now it's $60. And things weren't going up. There were not big collectors in the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Right.
And I noticed the more I bought and the more I educated myself, and I took some online courses and read a lot of books, especially about Scotch, and started in learning about bourbon, American whiskey, and the history of American whiskey, because it's all interrelated. And noticed a trend of the prices. Mm-hmm. And as I noticed that trend, I started talking to other investors and collectors that I would meet at meetings and tastings, and we got to having conversations about potentially investing in single malt Scotch. And now there's actually Rare 101 has a whiskey index, and they track the top 100 and the bottom 100 scotches that are sold at auction every month, month after month, and they've done so since 2008. And from 2008 to December 31st of 2018, single malt Scotch increased in value on an average of 852%.
So what other investment could you have gotten that was
Nothing.
Maybe cryptocurrency?
Nothing. The night index showed about a 580% increase. So you got between 500 and 800% increase depending on the bottle and the style. But in that one given year for 2018, if you bought the top 100 bottles and you sold them December 31st, including your fees and your taxes, you would have made 58% on your money.
Oh my gosh.
So outside of loving to drink it and all the complexities of it and getting to meet all the people in the industry and all the other collectors, truly it's something that you can make some money at. Right. And my group of guys I collect with kind of have a rule. We if there's 2 collectors, we buy 3 and drink 1. So
right.
We get to try everything that we buy. And there's a bigger group of us that's about 18 guys, and we try to always buy 1 extra just to open it, so we can try it and see what it's like, no matter if it's the $100 bottle or if it's the $1,000 bottle.
Right, right. Yeah, see, that's what gets you, people. I don't know if you're paying attention. The moment you realize that you can buy it, not open it, and not lose money is when your purchasing gets out of hand. Because
it's an addiction.
It becomes an addiction, right? And then when you get good at it, you know, you get like this little. It's just like baseball cards. You get this jolt that you got the thing that the other guy couldn't get. You know, oh, that is hilarious.
So we had a great conversation in Las Vegas back in 2010, and the guy that put the Highland whiskeys out of Glasgow, and he's been collecting since he was 16 years old, and having a conversation about what was bourbon going to do as compared to what Scotch was doing. Mm-hmm. Scotch really started trending up and being tracked in 2008, and no one really ever tracked bourbon. Mm-hmm. They're also tracking bourbon now. And in 2010, we really thought 2018, 2019, we would see on the graph, we would see Scotch start to flatten out and slowly trend up, and we thought bourbon would exceed past it. And all the graphs that we're looking at now, through the last auction here in January of 2020, they're both going up at the same pace. There's been no flat spots that's lasted more than 30 days in either collecting and or purchasing industry of Scotch or bourbon.
Wow. And so 21 years, you have been in acquisition mode the whole time. About how many bottles do you have of Scotch at this point?
I have between 4,000 and 5,000 bottles of Scotch and between 1,000 and 2,000 bottles of bourbon.
And you're doing inventory now?
Doing inventory now. I just, we had a little contest on Oklahoma Bourbon Connoisseurs website, on our Facebook page last week. I took a picture of the room after I finished my warehouse number 2, And I put up a bottle of the new Weller 107 for whoever could be the closest to guess the number of bottles in the room without going over. And it was 2,174 bottles.
Wow.
And that's kind of all the majority of my bourbons are there, my overflow scotch and the big oversized boxes.
Right. And not, sometimes I feel like these questions are invasive, but anybody that hears that you have 5,000 bottles of scotch and potentially 2,000 bottles of bourbon, they want to know. So what do you think your collection is worth?
So back up 4 years, and there's a guy named Nicholas Palaki, and he's a Scotsman. And he lives in New York City, and he came down to visit me. And what he does is he evaluates whiskey collections, and he puts on high-end whiskey tastings for major corporations. And he spent about 30 minutes at my request wandering around my Scotch vault, and I asked him just to give me a ballpark figure. And at that time, 4 years ago, he was at 6 million.
Okay.
So that's the only number I have from a real expert.
It stands to reason it's got to be over 7 now.
I would say.
Okay.
I'd say on a bad day, it's 4.
Right.
On a really good day, it's 7.
Depends on how the day's going. So whenever you come across somebody that has made it this far in a hobby that you're passionate about, everybody always wants to know, what do you do for a living?
What don't I do? By trade, I'm a cardiovascular perfusionist. I set up and operate the heart-lung machine for open heart surgery. I've been doing that for 26 years.
Okay.
That's given me enough income to allow me to invest in real estate, airplanes, bars, cigar stores, other things that I'm passionate about, things that are also my hobbies, but things that can make money as I go along.
Right.
So as my medical profession and along with the real estate, it's blessed me, God's blessed me well that I can have a nice hobby, and it's going to make me money as well in time.
And I think you told me you've been married for 27 years?
27 years on our 28th now.
28th. And how does your wife feel about your passion?
So great story. The first year I really started collecting, and I saw what the prices were doing, what the indexes were doing, I had spent about $60,000 on scotch in the first year. I wasn't putting anything in the stock market. I was putting it in scotch. I was outside the box investing.
Right.
And she came and said, I noticed credit card statements at the end of the year that you spent about $60,000 on whiskey this year. I said, yeah, honey, come look. So I brought the spreadsheet out, and I showed every bottle I bought, what I'd paid for it, and the other column of what they were currently going for at market. And all she said is, how can I help you? So she actually spent the last 3 weeks with me over in the warehouse helping me do inventory.
Doing inventory?
So she's on board.
Oh, that is so awesome.
She doesn't drink whiskey. On the other side of that, we went to Scotland in October and spent 3 weeks over there. And she tasted every single whiskey that was put in front of us at all the different distilleries we went to and the brand ambassadors that met us over there at every bar I went to. And I was appreciative that she never made a face or a bad comment, but she did try them all.
And does she enjoy?
She drinks wine and beer.
Yeah.
And she just typically doesn't like the brown spirits.
And my wife's the same way. It's not that she doesn't appreciate whiskey. It's that she actually tells people, I drink it more, but I don't know how to pace myself, because she's used to drinking, 2 glasses of wine when we have drinks. That's 12 ounces, Right. If you switch over to a brown spirit, it's the same alcohol, because a lot of my stuff is higher proof too. Right. So, 2 ounces of that is equal to 12 ounces, you accidentally get drunker than you intend.
And I think the highlight of our trip was we were in Edinburgh at one of the little liquor stores there on the Royal Mile, and you can taste everything. Unlike in America, you walk into a liquor store, they pour you samples of everything in Scotland. And so we were going through several samples, and she found a 29-year-old Gordon and MacPhail Mannockmore. It's a very light and fruity whiskey. Mm-hmm. And she tasted it, and she asked to taste it again, and she asked me to buy her a bottle of that to keep for herself. She liked it that much. So I'm making headway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when I first started collecting wine, my wife didn't like wine, and same thing, went to Napa, and I think it was at Chateau Montelena. She had their Cabernet, and she said, I didn't shut her. And now she loves wine. So eventually I'll get her over on the whiskey.
Yeah. So an even better story is we talked about my wine collection. I only drank Cabernet Sauvignon. Mm-hmm. And so I had around 1,000 bottles of Cabernet Sauvignon. And my wife didn't drink wine at all. Fast forward 20 years, and the only kind of wine that she drinks is Cabernet Sauvignon.
After you gave away
After I gave it all away, there's no left.
So being at this level of collection and having done it for as long as you have, you've got to meet a lot of people from the whiskey industry.
Both bourbon and scotch. I've been very, very fortunate, and I pride myself in the fact that I don't own any whiskey that I haven't tasted, with a couple of exceptions of a bottle one of one that no one's ever tasted. So what I do is I travel to these whiskey events, like the Universal Whiskey Experience out in Las Vegas, New York City to the Water of Life, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society does tastings around the country. I try to go to these different events just so that I can taste the different whiskeys that I either want to buy or that I already own. In doing that, a lot of the brand ambassadors, the distillery managers, the whiskey creators are there. And through 21 years of it, I've met and become friends with a lot of them. And it makes it even more fun because I'm excited about their brands anyway. Right. And I get to actually sit with a guy at a table that made the whiskey, and he gets to really tell me the truth about it. And I am very curious. I ask a lot of questions. But it's great to get to meet those guys, and they're all for the most part, they're all very friendly, and for the most part, all of them are very humble. I spent, David Stewart's the master distiller for Balvenie, and I got to spend some time with him, traveled over there, and we had about a 2.5 hour bus ride from the distillery back to the airport, and I sat next to him, and we did not have, we talked the entire 2.5 hours, and we didn't discuss whiskey one time.
Really?
We talked about life and philosophy. He's been with the distillery for 50 years. The things he's seen and the things he's learned, but about the Scottish people and the countryside and heritage and tradition and comparing Scotland to the U.S. Great conversation. We'd already done the whiskey stuff for 3 days. So now we were just talking about life. Very humble, very kind individual.
So if I put you on the spot and I said, what's one of your most memorable experiences with somebody from the bourbon industry?
It's probably going to be Bill Samuels.
Okay.
Had an opportunity in May of 2017 to travel to Louisville, and Bill was gracious enough to invite a couple of my friends and myself to his home and sat on his patio, beautiful spring day, overlooking the river, drinking Maker's 46, and getting to have a one-on-one conversation with one of the ultimate ambassadors of bourbon.
For sure.
And once again, a very kind, humble person, gracious host. Learned so much from him about his life and his family and his wife, just their whole family, and how they did things and how Maker's Mark came about with his mom and his dad. I felt very humbled being there, but he just shared such great stories, and he makes you just feel like he's known you forever. So that's probably been my highlight.
Which is shocking because he's literally a rocket scientist.
But he is actually. He was a rocket scientist at Cal Berkeley in the 60s.
Right. A lot of people don't know that. He wasn't going to go into the family business.
Aerospace engineer.
Yeah. I've actually heard him tell that story, and it's so funny. It's like the family tricked him into coming home for a short period of time or something, and then he's like, I just never left.
Ended up being in the whiskey industry. And his son Rob is also very kind. He now kind of runs Bill's kind of the ambassador now, and Rob's the day-to-day operations guy.
Yeah.
What I really appreciate about Maker's Mark is all the buildings on that property are historic landmarks. They can't change any building without permission, and his mother did that. Had them all made into historic landmarks so that they can't change the way that the property looks without going through zoning and planning and committee and the Historic Society.
I did not know that.
Yeah, wonderful. And when they build the new building on site, they had to get permission. It's not part of it, where their new underground area where they make their Maker's 46.
Right.
But all of the original buildings, they can't move anything without permission. It's kind of nice that they really wanted to preserve what they had and not make it industrial and make it change.
That's amazing. And so, what about from the whiskey community standpoint, not industry people? What are some of the more memorable experiences that you've had with other collectors or whiskey club members?
So there's 2 or 3 guys in the United States that have collections as big or bigger than mine. I may have more bottles. They may have a higher dollar value
right.
because they buy higher end bottles. One of those guys is Mahesh Patel out of Atlanta. He's a real estate developer, and he buys the really high end bottles. Great guy, and he's the guy that actually puts on the Universal Whiskey Experience out in Las Vegas. He started that 10 years ago, and I actually met him 11 years ago at a charity event raising money for water for third world countries. And it was a tasting of the Bowmore trilogy, the Bowmore Black, Gold, and White. And it was at Charlie Palmer's RL restaurant. They had us all seated at different tables, and Mahesh was at my table, and I got to meet him. And we've had great conversations about our ability. He was raised in London, and so he's used to traveling throughout Europe. And so he's been to Scotland. He goes and picks his own casks out. He buys his own casks. So he has a whole different experience than I do. And it's kind of nice to learn how he got to where he is and how he got involved with some of the families, particularly at Glenfiddich and at Glenfarclas. Mm-hmm. And so from that, I've become friends with some of those people through mutual association.
Yeah. And then, doing stuff like the whiskey, what's it called, the Whiskey Experience?
It's the Universal Whiskey Experience, and the event is called the Nth. And it's the last weekend in April, and the last couple of years have been different. The first 7 or 8 years, it was mostly Scotch and a few bourbons. 2 years ago, Dave Pickrell was there, and that was an opportunity to spend some time with him. He passed in this last year, but the things he was doing with Whistle Pig, he was there. So I started bringing in some ryes and some bourbons, and the last couple of years, it's been a really nice change from just Scotch.
Right.
But it's a really nice high-end event. He only allows about 300 people, plus 50 VIPs, suit and tie. Everybody has to be dressed appropriately. Everybody has to act appropriately. If anybody's been to Whiskey Fest, it's kind of like a drunk fest.
Hodgepodge, yeah.
It's fun, but it's a lot of people crowded into a room trying to get a taste of something. And that's not, it's crowded, but it's very organized and very structured, and you're going to get to try all the whiskeys. And so at the same time, when Mahesh does that, it gives us an opportunity to meet more people. For example, George Grant from Glenfarclas is there, and Ian Logan from Glenfiddich is there, Ian Miller from Glenlivet, Ian Miller from Glenfiddich, and all their brand reps and their distillery makers are at this event. So you get to actually interact with them and ask questions and learn about their brand and learn about their product, to learn about their marketing, and you get to taste all their new products.
That's pretty fun.
So having the bourbon people there the last few years has been really nice. A lot of the Texas bourbons have been there, and that's really nice to get to try some of those things.
Yeah. Just curious, there are a number of producers of single malts in the United States, and I hear that is a growing category. As somebody who has as much experience in Scotch, how do you feel about the single malts that are coming out in the U.S.?
Most of them I've tried. I've really liked. Westland is one of them, made on the West Coast. It's a single malt, and being single malt, it's 100% malted barley, made in the traditional way that they would make it in Scotland, without the rules. So it may not be 3 years in a barrel. It may only be 2 years in a barrel. Balcones out of Texas. Our group just bought a barrel of single malt. It was 20 months in a French oak cask and finished 4 months in a Four Roses bourbon barrel.
Okay.
And it's 100% malted barley. I like the way they do things there. I like the way they process. They have their own bin that they just keep single malts in. Nothing else ever goes in it besides barley. Their corn and their rye go in something different. Their wheat goes in something different. It's kind of nice that they kind of stick to part of the real Scotch tradition of keeping everything separate.
I mean, their fermenting equipment is from Scotland.
Yeah.
And it's specifically designed. They have a roller mill and a hammer mill. I mean, they go above and beyond to make sure that they're doing it in the Scottish style.
And it's a good quality product. I really like it.
Yeah.
We are fortunate to be alive in this time. There's more micro breweries and micro distilleries in the United States than in the world probably right now, if you count all the micro breweries. It's really a great time to be in the whiskey and beer world.
I find it interesting that you appreciate a Balcones single malt. I released a piece this last week only in the state of Texas, of a double-blind study that I did where people were picking a Texas whiskey over some pretty common rye whiskeys. And I got a lot of negative feedback from people. And one guy said, I have $10,000 worth of bourbon and, Texas whiskey sucks. And do you find that as you've interacted with collectors at different levels, that there comes a point where the snobbery starts to go away?
Absolutely.
And you start to realize, like, oh, you don't have to like everything, and it's okay.
So in particular, started a few years ago. So typically, Scotch has an age statement, and the age statement on a bottle of Scotch is the youngest whiskey in the bottle. So if some definition, a single malt Scotch whiskey, if you take 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, and 24-year-old off in the same distillery and put it in a barrel, that's a single malt Scotch from one distillery. It's 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's the youngest whiskey. They came out with the no age statements because maybe they're running out of older supplies, and maybe it's some 30-year-old whiskey and they've got some 6-year-old whiskey in there. It comes down to, what does it taste like and do you like it? And what's the price point? So if it's a no age statement and it tastes amazing and it's $80 a bottle, great. It's $180 a bottle, great. As long as it tastes good and you like it. Yeah, the snobbery goes away. You come to the point that it's all about, do I enjoy this whiskey when I'm drinking it? And if you do, it doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter if it's bourbon or if it's Scotch or if it's a rye. If you like it, no matter the price point, no matter the age statement, you should drink it and enjoy it.
So how about, you've hunted a lot. What is your most shocking find experience? Because you travel all over the world to pick up bottles and to get things. And if you don't have, do you have a shocking find?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
I enjoy, and you can ask anyone that's been in my vault, I will always open the old Dalmore cigar malt. It's been gone since about 2008. They don't make it anymore. They were $30 a bottle here in the United States. And they're currently selling anywhere from 100 to 250 pounds, or around $300 on the auction market. Just depends on the month, but 250 to 300 is kind of a normal price. I get a phone call one day from a guy in New York City. He said, I know you collect the Dalmore cigar malts. I said, yeah. He goes, I've got 24 bottles. You can have them for $60 a piece. You pay the shipping. So he said, but you have to pick them up. So I picked the phone up and called a buddy that lives in New York City just outside and said, are you going to be near this area? He goes, yeah, I'm going to be there on Friday morning. I go, I'm going to PayPal you some money. Would you go by and pick these bottles up for me? He goes, yeah, and I'll ship them back to you. I'll take care of all of it. So that was a great find. That I've been paying 150 to 250 pounds, and I get all these bottles for $60. But the story's better. So he goes to pick them up. The guy picks the box up. 2 of the bottles fall out of the box and bust all over the floor.
Oh, no.
So now I'm buying 22 bottles. So my buddy picks them up, takes them back to his house. He says, I'm going to go pack them up and ship them to you. And I said, well, you keep 2 of them for yourself, or for your effort and your trouble and for doing this for me. He goes, oh, you don't have to do that. I go, yeah, I do, because I'm still crying over the 2 that got broke. It was great, though. Just out of the blue, somebody contacts you that knows you collect something in particular.
Yeah.
That was a nice find.
That's awesome. So I like to think that whiskey creates experiences, right? Because, you can drink whiskey alone, and I know that I do, but my favorite times of drinking whiskey are when I'm drinking with somebody else.
So I say this about whiskey. When you put your nose to the glass, it should evoke a memory or a thought. That smell should take you somewhere, either to another whiskey, or a time that you had a whiskey that was similar, or to your grandma's attic, or your grandma's basement, or beside the lake, or near the campfire. It should take you to a place and time. And typically, if I've had the whiskey before, it takes me to the people I was with at the time and the experience that was created. And if it does none of that, then I'm going to find and appreciate what's about to happen.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're going to create something, and it's going to evoke a memory the next time. So it's all about who you're drinking with. I rarely drink alone. Long day, I might pour half an ounce, get a cigar, sit out back, and just unwind. But typically, especially when I'm opening something special, I want to share that with someone.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't drink any of my, premium bottles at home. But like, even if my wife and I are having drinks, I don't drink any of my premium stuff. There's the regular daily stuff that I enjoy, and I drink that. So when people come over, and I'm like, anything, just point, and we'll drink it. And they're like, I don't want to drink up all your good stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to try it unless you drink it with me.
Exactly right.
So what has been one of your top 1 or 2 experiences of drinking with somebody else and it really was meaningful for you?
So I'm in Scotland. My first trip ever to Laphroaig Distillery. Mm-hmm. And I had met John Campbell at Cigars in Dallas in 2012. And this is 2013, and I have gone over as a guest. Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy own Ardbeg and Glenmorangie.
Okay.
And I've gone as their guest. And so we're staying at the Seaview House at Ardbeg, and we have free afternoon. I know John, so I thought I'd just go by the distillery and say hi. Course of the afternoon, bunch of brand reps from around the world, from William Grant & Sons are there. And of the 30 guys that were there, I probably knew 29 of them.
Wow.
Just I had interacted with them at some event somewhere in time. So John's like, well, I'm in a hurry. I got to give these guys a tour. What are you doing here? I just stopped in to say hi. We happen to be down the road at Ardbeg. We're doing a little tour with them. And so at 45 minutes later, we're all still standing around talking. So Dave, the manager of the store there at Laphroaig, he whispers something in his ear, and Dave goes to the dunnage. He says, you guys wait out here. So you're sitting on the Hebrides, right on the ocean. It's puffy cloud, just about 60 degrees. You're sitting at the point where you can see Laphroaig on the building, like you see in all the pictures of if you follow that in Scotland at all. And Dave comes back out, and he has a regular Glencairn glass like this, and it's filled to here. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "That's a Western pour." I figured, and we're guy that was with me, we're big boys. Right. I figured you big boys needed a Western pour. So he goes, "Tell me what that is." So I put it up to my nose, and I go, "That's the 40-year Laphroaig drawn straight from the cask." And he goes, "How would you know that?" And I go, "Because I've had just about every Laphroaig in the world, and I've never had the 40, although I own a bottle of it." He goes, "Well, that's exactly what it is."
Oh, my God.
So we sat there and drank it. So the guy that was with me, very good friend of mine, we're sitting there just enjoying the day, a surreal moment, my first time ever in Scotland, my first time at Laphroaig, the perfect, beautiful day with the oldest whiskey they've ever bottled. Mm-hmm. And Dave stood out there and just talked to us for 45 minutes to an hour as we enjoyed our whiskey. Got to learn a lot about their culture and about Laphroaig. And it's one of those moments that's just locked in my mind.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and that's one of the things that becomes very addicting as you get involved in this, is that those experiences, maybe not at that level, are not that infrequent. They happen quite often when you get together with people and you'll have a connection. It could be a family connection. You started talking about, you were with someone and you were talking about philosophy and, the culture, and you weren't even talking about whiskey.
No.
And those things happen. That's what has gotten me so drawn into this. And, there was a time where I had some friends in my life and we'd known each other since high school. And the relationship just was kind of toxic, I was always nervous about going out because they'd drink too much and they'd upset people that were around us because they were too loud. And, and I was so hesitant to step away from that. And because, when you get to your 40s, it's not as easy to make new friends, But getting involved in this hobby and meeting people like this, I realized I now have a new way to make sure that I'm spending time that's enjoyable in healthy relationships. And it actually helped me to kind of walk away from some relationships that were not good for me. They weren't helping me. And that's a hard thing for somebody who's not involved in the community to understand, because it looks like we're either trading baseball cards or we're alcoholics, like, why would you need 7,000 bottles of whiskey? And it's like, well, I'm not going to drink them all, Eventually. Yeah. So, but you also, you also know quite a bit about cigars.
I do. I have a cigar store here in Oklahoma City. I've been smoking cigars since about the same time, about the mid-'90s. I'm a certified retail tobacconist. I've studied, taken the tests.
I don't even know what that is.
So it was formerly the IPCPR, the International Premium Cigar and Pipe Retailers. It just became the PCA, the Premier Cigar Association. They just changed the name this year. And they offer four levels of tests now. As a cigar smoker, you can go on and take a test and be basically a civilian trained and take the test. If you own a cigar store, you do a 6-month internship and study for the test and take the test and become a certified retail tobacconist. And they also have a bar humidor manager level test, and then they have a master's test, a master tobacconist. And basically, once you take your retail tobacconist exam, you spend 100 hours in the fields, tobacco fields, making pipes, cutting pipe tobacco, learning how to roll cigars, and you get that 100 hours in, and then you take another test to become a master. And currently there's 17, 18, 19 masters in the United States. Most of them are in Nicaragua, the Dominican, Honduras. So it's just a different level, and I enjoy cigars. So that being said, in the last 20 years, I have made more friends around the world over whiskey and cigars than anything else I've ever done.
Right.
Because we kind of have the same mindset. We enjoy, and I'll say the finer things, because whiskey is one of the finer things in life, and certainly cigars are. It's certainly one of those things that you do it by choice. And with cigars, it's a dedication. If it takes an hour and a half to smoke a cigar, you're going to dedicate. I'm going to sit in this room and talk to these people, or I'm going to be in this place for an hour and a half, and I'm going to relax and enjoy the cigar and lower my blood pressure and take the stress of my day away. One of the old statements from one of the magazines in the 1950s or 60s, I don't remember if it's Life or Time, it's a picture of a little boy, and the statement is, like his mother talking to him, "Son, if you're ever in trouble, find a man smoking a cigar. He'll have time to help you."
That sounds like solid advice.
Great statement. Yeah. If a guy's got the time to smoke a cigar, he'll have time to listen to you and help you with whatever your problem is.
Yeah. So I probably should ask this earlier, but what are your top, say, 2 or 3 favorite bottles that you own?
We're not talking about money. We're talking about favorites.
Favorites, yes.
So,
because you have a couple bottles that are $90,000, $100,000, something like that, right?
So back up in time. I told you about my friend that introduced me to Cardew 12. We're actually at a restaurant in Kerrville, Texas called Cowboys. And I have never had a single malt scotch in my life. I've never had a whiskey. I've been drinking wine and beer. So we have a nice steak at Cowboys, and he orders me a Lafroig 10, smoky, peaty whiskey that absolutely is awful. Like sucking on a piece of used charcoal. I wanted to spit it out. I wanted to throw it in his face. I hated it.
Right.
Fast forward in time. I absolutely love the smoky, peaty whiskey.
Right.
And the Lafroig 30 is one of my ultimate favorite whiskeys. One of the old Lafroig 30. There's a new one now. It's good. The old one was great. So whiskey, single malts in particular, are classified into 3 categories. Light and fruity, rich and round, smoky and peaty. So my smoky and peaty is Lafroig 30. My rich and round would be, and this is a fairly expensive one, but I've never tasted anything so unique, is the Bowmore Black 1962 44 years old. A very unique flavor. In the light and fruity category, Glenmorangie 18 or Glenmorangie 25-year-old.
So interesting you should say that. So my buddy who drinks bourbon, somebody gave him a Glenmorangie 18, and he said, I really don't drink scotch. He said, but it's a gift. Do you want to try it? And so we go over to his house and we open it up, and my wife loved it.
I call it breakfast whiskey.
Yeah.
It's light, it's fruity, it's easy to drink, put in your Cheerios.
Yeah. And so we bought a bunch of URLs. We thought about doing a video blog together called like Bourbon Boy and Whiskey Girl or Scotch Girl. We bought a bunch of URLs, but my wife doesn't like being on camera, so we ended up doing nothing with it. But she got excited about it for just a second.
So in the bourbon category, and take all the hype away, I think one of the best tasting bourbons I've ever had is the Pappy Van Winkle 20 year. And if you took the name away and gave me that whiskey, and you gave me those cherry undertones and those tobacco undertones and those leather undertones to a whiskey, I really like it. So back up to a different price range, Noah's Mill is very similar to that taste profile for me.
Okay.
And so I like Noah's Mill at $65 a bottle, and it's reminiscent to me of the 20-year-old.
I bought Noah's Mill by the case until they switched.
Yeah.
So
same way, the old school.
The 2016 and older, I drank it all the time. Ironically, I have a bottle of Pappy 20 open in the car, but it's the new juice, and I can't stand it.
The old Stitzelweller was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the old Stitzelweller if
Yes,
you're talking about Pappy 20. So we couldn't go into all the bottles that he has, but I have walked through the vault, and he has $100,000 bottles of scotches. He's got like just cases and cases of old Stitzelweller, Pappy Van Winkle of every type and kind and blah, blah, blah. So he has all of that. But you do also own, so you have a cigar shop. What's that called?
It's called Omerta Cigar Company.
Okay.
It's here in Oklahoma City. And we also have a bar. It's called Stag Lounge. And Stag Lounge also has a walk-in humidor. It's a bar with about 350 different bourbons and single malts, craft cocktails, beer, and you can smoke cigars in the bar.
Yeah, and I have not had a chance to go by there yet, but I have it on good authority that they have an amazing selection and amazing customer service and reasonable prices considering where you're at and what you're doing. So if you get a chance to go by there, you definitely should. And is there anything else that you need to tell the people about that would maybe benefit you? I mean, I took all this
just
time.
drink whiskey all day, every day.
Not all day, every day, but
Well, if you can go on vacation.
If you can go on vacation, then drink the whiskey. Okay. And any websites, URLs, or anything that you've got for any of the businesses that the whiskey folks might be interested
Stag Lounge OKC, if you just want to check out what kind of whiskey we have behind the bar. We have an online cigar store. It's Puros Cigar.
Okay.
And then Omerta Cigar Company. We're on Facebook, all of them. You can look them up and just get a feel for what we do. We're about customer service and sharing our cigars and our whiskey with others, and everybody trying to have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want more information about Bourbon Real Talk, you can find that at bourbonrealtalk.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram /Bourbon Real Talk. And you can search for us on YouTube and watch the videos, or you can search for us on any podcast player and listen to just the audio download. And if you woke up this morning and you were unsure whether or not anyone loved you, just know that I love you. And I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk. Cheers.
Cheers.